going to be whizzing through the grade 3 violin pieces. That's 9. Quick whiz through 9 pieces. I'm just going to be playing extracts from them and talking about the technical and musical challenges. I expect my students to interpret music themselves with guidelines, of course, most of the time, rather than copy. So I'm not going to do full performances. I'm going to start off with A1 Blackberry Blossom. Now this is in the American bluegrass tradition. That's pretty cool. There are two lines in it. There's the B flat to B natural. So for your first finger, you need to actually be confident about sliding your first finger around. Now, the biggest challenge in this piece is the middle section. At the end, it's kind of similar. Da 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 da. It's just the end. So that's the same kind of idea as the beginning. So it's kind of like A B A structure. That's ternary form. It's just the middle section that's tricky because there are lots of double stoppings, and I think it would be much easier if the bowing was different, but the bowing is quite tricky. So, and then you've got, so for this you need to, when you put your finger down on the B, you need to make sure that you don't touch the E string, because you've got a double stop with the E string. So that's one challenge. You need to have a fairly strong pinky finger. So it needs to curve properly and go down on the string quite firmly, and you need to be confident about it. So to prepare for this piece, you could actually do some pinky exercises and also some sliding exercises and some double stops from your study book. Right, number 2, A2 is a Loure. It couldn't be any more different, really. This is a Baroque piece of music by Telemann, so it should have quite a refined sound. They write out the trills for you in associated board. Now, you don't have to do exactly what they write, because in Baroque times the performer decided, but you need to be consistent about the ideas that you have throughout the music, because in Baroque music you can't just play one trill on a crotchet a bit faster than one on, and do lots of notes on one and then not lots of notes on another. It just won't sound balanced. So you need to be careful with that. There are, in the second half, a lot of what we call appoggiaturas, which are also ornaments. They're like a sigh, dia, dia. One of the things that you need to be careful of in general with ornaments is that you make sure they decorate the main notes, but in an appoggiatura, you put an emphasis on that note, dia, dia, and it takes half the value usually of the main note, unless the note is dotted. You will need to make sure that you can shift up into the third position easily. You also need to make sure that your pinky finger is quite strong, because there are a lot of fourth fingers. And if you play the open string instead, then it will jar on the tone, so you need to do something about it, because it's a refined piece of music. So you need to make sure that you play with your fourth finger. The shift down is quite easy. So that brings us to Reigen, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is a Russian piece, and lots of staccato. So the challenge with this piece is to keep your staccatos the same in the first section, and then and then the bowing changes to pinky finger because there are quite a few fourth finger notes. It's all about bowing, consistency of your bowing and control. The notes are not that tricky in terms of intonation. You know, it's not that hard to get the notes in tune, probably. You could practice your A major scale and your D major scale, and that will really help you play it. That brings us to B1, Sleep Song. This is mainly legato. It's all about legato bowing. You also have a shift into the third position, and at the end you end in the third position as well. So you will have to practice your nice smooth bowings, nice long smooth bowings to bring that bring the tune out on that one. B2. You go up into the third position in bar 21. You have some decorations on the notes. You can see they're little notes like you've got on A2 in Loure, but if you notice, if you look carefully, you can see that they've got a little line over them, which means that they're in a chia or a crushed note. So that means they just decorate the main note, dia, like that. You've got quite a few of those, and then you've got a little ornament. You've got a little mordant in bar 15, 16, 17. Da la da da, to decorate the music, but they're all written out. In more modern music, you need to follow exactly the instructions that are on the page, because most likely the composer has written those himself or herself, whereas in Baroque times it was left to the performer usually to decorate the music, so you have more flexibility with Loure and you can change it. And in the regulations for Associated Board, they clearly say you don't have to use the same edition as they have actually created. In fact, their editions are not always the best, so you can change them. Let's go to B3. So this is a piece of music by Charles Dancla, who's quite a prolific violin composer. So this is a theme and variation. So variation 1. I'm not quite sure why they put a fourth finger in there, but you wouldn't have to use it because the ear probably won't hear that open string, so you might be able to get away with playing an open string there. Variation 2. And then the last section is double stopping. There's quite a lot of bow control in some areas of it, and it's all to do with romantic music, so you need to make it sound romantic and beautiful with nice long notes. Quite difficult to actually get a really good result on this piece and the Loure without using a touch of vibrato, so that's another thing to consider. So that's B3. Okay, so quite a fun piece to play. I'd say the first section works really well on the violin. There's some bowing that you will need to practice in bar 25. And then it goes back to the first theme again at the end. It's actually quite fun to play on the violin, that one. Then we've got C2, which is Rebecca, which is a rumba by Neil Mackay. He's written a very good tutor for viola, actually, Neil Mackay. So, course, you just have to decide where on the bow you're going to actually focus on bowing, so that you've got a bit more control over it. And obviously you need to make it sound like a rumba, so you need to make sure that the accents come out da 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 da. So you could practice the bowing first and then put the accents in later if you wanted to. So da 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 da. And then the last one is a shanty for Ludwig or Ludwig. This is quite fun. You have some shifts into the third position, nothing too taxing though. Looking back on the set, you'll need to decide not just on which pieces you think, it would be best for you to learn all the pieces really, but you will need to decide which 3 pieces you prefer. Another thing you can do is think about the time investment in the piece. So even if the piece you find it that it's actually quite tricky, say Blackberry Blossom for example, A1, it is quite tricky in the middle section and it will take some practicing to fix. However, it's quite repetitive, so once you've got it, you've got it. And the other advantage of preparing a piece like that is that it would be a really good concert piece. It's not that any of the rest wouldn't be good concert pieces as well, but I always say to my students, you need to keep about 3 or 4 repertoire pieces in your back pocket, things that you can just pull out and play if someone asks you to play in concert. Because most of the time you will be tackling pieces that are just that bit trickier because you're trying to progress. But if you have some pieces that you find relatively easy to play, I mean this one, it sounds pretty impressive and it would be great in a concert. The audience would probably love it. It's a good example of the fact that sometimes it's worth the investment and time in learning a piece of music, not just for the examination, but for other purposes as well. So I hope that was helpful. Bye for now.